Hello, travelers. Welcome to the Copper Fox Inn. Come on in, take a seat, and join us as we discuss Homebrew for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. My name is Thomas the Human Bard, and I am joined today by...
Mercy the Tiefling Wizard.
And Onog the Half-Orc Barbarian.
And our friend...
Oh, she was just here. Where did she go? Bean!
Perhaps another jaunt to the void for our friend Bean. When she will return, we know not. Well, travelers, before we get into the episode, I want to remind you that you can send us homebrew you'd like us to check out at our email, thecopperfoxinn@gmail.com, or on social media at thecopperfoxinn. You can also comment them below, and remember to like the video and subscribe for future Dungeons & Dragons homebrew discussion content. Mercy, you've brought us something this week. What have you found in your searches of the Eldritch Tomes of Knowledge?
So I came across a Ranger subclass that really spoke to me. I thought it was really cool. It kind of fills a fantasy niche that there isn't really a subclass for in vanilla D&D. It was created by user Laser Llama from r/Unearthed Arcana. We will link to their Patreon and their GM binder, so you can check out the other stuff that they've made and you can support them if you like what they do, which I don't know why you wouldn't. It's pretty cool stuff.
10 out of 10 on the username.
Yes,
yeah, it's very
Laser
good.
Very good.
So this is the Ranger Conclave Spellbreaker.
Spellbreaker.
So this is a subclass for Rangers that is sort of like, kind of like the Templars in Dragon Age. They're sort of the magic police that take down mages who've gone too far.
Okay.
It's the magic police. The spell's too funny.
Yeah, but they specialize in fighting mages is the idea.
So mage breaker classes and like mage slaying classes or subclasses are a thing in a lot of RPGs,
Right,
but
right.
You're right, in 5th edition,
really.
there isn't really one.
Well,
very
there's,
much.
I believe Oath of the Ancients Paladin. They have specific abilities against spells, and there is a feat called Mage Slayer that
correct,
basically,
yeah.
if you are a melee boy, that gives you advantages against engaging wizards and things that cast spells.
All right, to get right into it, the Ranger Conclave Spellbreaker. At 3rd level, a Ranger gains the Ranger Conclave feature. The following option is available to a Ranger in addition to those offered in the player's handbook. Spellbreaker. There we go. Where there is power, there are those that abuse that power. Spellbreakers are a small but dedicated fraternity of Rangers who specialize in taking down spellcasters that abuse their arcane abilities. While most pursue the life of a spellbreaker for noble reasons, there are some who seek to destroy any who wield the weave. Most spellbreakers operate in the shadows, only revealing themselves when the time is right and they are certain of success. When one wrong move can end in disintegration, there is no room for error. So Spellbreaker Magic. Starting at 3rd level, you gain certain spells at the Ranger levels noted in the Spellbreaker Magic table. Once you gain a spell, you always have it prepared, and it doesn't count against the number of spells you can prepare each day. If you gain a spell that doesn't appear on the Ranger spell list, the spell is nonetheless a Ranger spell for you.
And you had mentioned that was based off of... this was designed for a rework of the Ranger in which they became a prepared caster.
Yeah, so Laser Llama also just has their own version of the Ranger class, which is heavily inspired by...
Who does?
Right, who doesn't, right? But it's heavily inspired by the Unearthed Arcana variant rules. Yeah. So you can check that out as well, but they made specific note that this will work perfectly fine for regular Rangers as well, just like swap a little bit of the wording in the spells, but it's pretty easy to figure out.
Okay.
So what spells they get?
Alright, so at 3rd level they get Bane, 5th level Blindness Deafness, 9th level Counterspell, of course, 13th level Resilient Sphere, and 17th level Wall of Force.
Blindness and deafness, the poor man's counterspell.
Yeah, basically.
Not really a counterspell, but more of a please stop casting spells spell.
So the first feature we've got here is Mirror Blade. Beginning at 3rd level, you learn the ability to enchant the signature weapon of a spellbreaker, the Mirror Blade. I like the name, it's very evocative of what it is. At the end of a long rest, you can perform a special ritual to create a mirror blade as long as you have a bladed weapon available to you. The blade is considered a magic weapon and has charges equal to your wisdom modifier. While holding it, you can use a reaction to expend one or more of its charges to cast the Absorb Elements spell from it using your spell save DC. For 1 charge, you cast the first level version of the spell. You can increase the spell slot level by 1 for each additional charge you expend.
Okay.
If you cast Absorb Elements using your Mirror Blade and make a melee weapon attack targeting the creature whose spell you absorbed, you treat the additional damage from Absorb Elements as its maximum roll.
If you target the person who did it.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
The Mirror Blade regains a number of charges equal to your Wisdom modifier at the end of a long rest.
This is basically turning Absorb Elements into a class feature.
It's also just like the Uno reverse card of class features.
I think it works really well for what this is.
Fireball me, no, fireball you.
Because it's like, it is normally a reaction.
Yeah. It is always, it has to be a reaction.
Right, it is always a reaction.
No other way to cast
but it's not using your spell slots. So it's using its own separate resource. It's using charges equal to your Wisdom modifier, which as a ranger should be a high stat for you.
Yeah.
So it lets you take less damage from mages and do more damage to mages without burning through all of your spell slots. So I think it works. I like the idea of them being this order of rangers that have these special weapons where it's like, wait a minute, is that a mirror blade? He must be a Spellbreaker Ranger. I think that's cool. I like stuff like that just for even world building implications.
Sure, definitely.
I think this is good, but it's another one of those weird scenarios where, I mean, like, I love the flavoring of the Mirror Blade, but it's another one of those situations where, like, kind of like we ran into a lot of the reworks of the Ranger class where they just give Rangers
free stuff.
When they just give them free stuff because they're like, we know Rangers aren't good, so here's just...
You get a free magic weapon at 3rd level, here you go.
You get a free magic weapon at 3rd level that lets you cast a spell you should already know for free. But it's like when the reworks they've done before where they just give them Hunter's Mark because everyone's like, well, yeah, Rangers should have Hunter's Mark, so instead of making you pick it as a spell, we'll just give it to you for free. Or kind of what happened with the Hexblade, where it's like, yeah, warlocks should be picking Hex as a spell. We'll just give it to you for free. That always feels weird. Like, this is a very well handled version of it, I think, because it ties it to the item and not necessarily you.
Yeah.
But what it boils down to is, and then here's free casting of...
I think it's one of those things where 5e has been out long enough and it's been messed with long enough with homebrews that I feel like we're almost getting to a point where we're sort of realizing that maybe some of the things that are spells
shouldn't have been spells.
Would be better as abilities that are limited to only this one class instead of saying, wizards can do anything or whatever, And so it's sort of one of those things where it puts you in this awkward corner because if you're trying to write a ranger who specifically thwarts mages, how do you not give them an ability like this, but then it is just a spell that exists? And that's almost like a problem of D&D 5e where it's like everything is a spell.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true. Like, the spell design space in 5th edition is, like, really fleshed out. And in a lot of ways, like, in previous editions, there were abilities that existed outside of spells that all got lumped into spells in 5th edition. And then it's like, well, if you want to do something like that, be a caster. And that's why every class is a caster now.
Exactly,
Even barbarian classes cast spells now.
So next up is Spell Sight. Your training as a Spellbreaker has given you the unique ability to detect the magical ability of other creatures. Upon reaching 3rd level, as an action, choose one creature you can see within 60 feet of you. You immediately learn its spellcasting ability, if it has one, and the level of the highest spell the creature can cast. Once you use this feature, you must complete a short or long rest before you can use it again.
I like that, actually.
Isn't that cool?
That's pretty good. That's like you're the bounty hunter looking around, you're like, nah, that's a wizard.
I feel like you can just smell it on him.
Yeah, nah, guys, that guy's a wizard.
Yeah, very akin to the Battle Master's ability to size up their opponents as well. Though that takes a minute, and they only get like certain kinds of information, and they have to pick. This one just kind of gives you all the relevant pieces, but it's only like prevalent to casters, so it's very interesting. I like,
and it takes
kind of like this.
Takes an action, and you get it once per rest. So it's like
it's not unlimited.
It comes up when it comes up, but you get it pretty regularly.
Yeah, this is a good example of another one of those quote unquote ribbon abilities where it's like, we'll give you a ribbon ability, but also at that same level, we're giving you another relevant ability.
Yeah,
which is a good way to do that, I think.
For a second, when you had said Spell Sight, I thought it was going to say, you can see in spells up to 60 feet and in dim spells up to another 60 feet.
You can just
like
see
dark
magic.
vision,
Yeah.
but for spells.
All right, Arcane Defense. Starting at 7th level, when you are forced to make a saving throw for a spell or other magical effect, you gain a bonus to the roll equal to your Wisdom modifier.
Nice.
So if this was a Wisdom save, you would basically get
Double
you would
wisdom
like double
modifier.
it. Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, double wisdom.
And it's
on,
like
yeah, on the
it's
wisdom
a
ones.
little once again like a little mini paladin aura just for you.
Yep.
Because
exactly
paladins
that.
add saving throws charisma to everybody
Yeah, they can
around.
double their
them. But this
charisma,
one
yeah.
is wisdom, but just for you. So okay.
And I like that it's not just here's magical resistance, because that's a little played out.
And would be
It's
a little
just-
powerful at level 7.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a more interesting version that you, at level 7, you probably don't have 20 wisdom yet, so you'll be able to boost it as you go up and feel like you're getting better in that department.
It'll scale with you. Yeah. And then Disrupting Strike, beginning at 11th level, when a creature you can see within 30 feet casts a spell with verbal, somatic, or material components, you can use your reaction to make one weapon attack targeting that creature. If your attack hits, the creature must make a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the spell they are attempting to cast immediately fails. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your Wisdom modifier, minimum of once. You regain all expended uses of it once you finish a long rest.
So it's sort of like, even if they because technically, like, I don't know how all the triggering, like, on the stack would work with that, but they're casting the spell. Even if it's not a concentration spell, it essentially sort of treats it like one, where
Well, a
they have to make a
reaction,
Constitution save, or else they can't keep the
Because it's like
spell.
you break their concentration in the middle of casting it. It's sort of a counter spell, but it's not a spell slot, which Rangers don't have a ton of spell slots.
Yeah.
This is actually kind of cool. But yeah,
I like that a lot.
The wording for, I believe, reactions in the player's handbook is that a reaction always takes place before the thing that triggered it takes place.
Right.
So, for instance, when somebody moves and causes an attack of opportunity, technically you hit them before they leave. Same thing with the shield spell. If an attack hits you, you use the shield spell and it doesn't hit you. So even though it was going to hit you, it doesn't. So that's
very relevant.
Yeah, this is that's very relevant for this, and I think this works perfectly well within it. It's just you cause them to make a roll if you successfully hit with your counter spell instead.
And that
It is-
applies to Mirror Blade as well, where it's like, because it's a reaction, you're like you'd only take half damage
Right.
because the spell didn't hit you yet.
Yeah. It's interesting that it's within 30 feet, because that's like when you're using like if you're a ranger who's a ranged weapon ranger who uses like a bow, that's real
real
cool
close.
and good. Well, yeah, it is close, but it's like usable. But if you are into ranged ranger and you just have a long sword, you're like, they're within 30 feet. I could make a weapon attack, but like searches pockets, like I got a dart. Like, I don't... is that going to work?
Throwing knives, I guess.
Yeah, maybe a throwing knife or a hand axe or something.
I feel like most Rangers have something ranged.
Well,
Most
think so.
Rangers.
No
You
matter-
think
yeah.
so, but not all of them.
Well,
Yeah.
they always start with a longbow. That is always starting ranger equipment. Whether or not you expect into dexterity or strength is up to you, but you always
And
have
almost
one.
everybody has a dagger on them
Yeah.
that you can throw, you know?
True.
And then the final ability, Spellbreaker Mantle. Upon reaching 15th level, your training as a Spellbreaker has reached its apex, and your blood has developed an innate magical ward. You have resistance to all damage from spells. I do
damage from
wonder if
spells.
that is powerful enough specifically because you already have Mirror Blade, which effectively
gives you resistance.
gives you resistance to most spells. You know what I mean?
And because
Does it stack in a weird way?
no, because
I don't think
I'm gonna
resistance
double
doesn't
check.
stack.
I'm
No,
gonna double
but I'm
check.
just wondering.
Yeah, absorb elements explicitly says gives resistance, not halves the damage. So your third
so it
level
can't
ability
stack.
non-bows with your 15th level ability.
Right.
Slightly, yeah.
Because it's like, I totally get why they would make that the 15th level ability, but I do think that either it or Mirror Blade needs to be adjusted, because it is underwhelming when you're like, I basically could already do that.
Yeah,
but you do have your Mirror Blade is a limited charge system.
And
So
now
this
it's
means that even if
basically
you're
permanent.
out of charges, you have it You have that resistance all the time.
Ooh, wait.
And the other part of casting Absorb Elements is the damage.
Right.
So now it just means you care more about when you want to deal the damage, less about when you want to protect yourself.
Also,
That's true.
can you give your Mirror Blade to someone else? Or is it just you can use it?
I mean, it doesn't say it requires attunement.
Charges
Let's
equal
see.
to your modifier. While holding it, you can use a reaction. I presume you would be able to give it to somebody. So there is that. Like, that is kind of a neat, like, one-up it
One
has
thing-
over just normally learning.
Unless it said while held by you, which is
Right.
different than while holding it. You know, because it's like, maybe it
Yeah.
only has
it
its
just
magic
says as
properties
long
when
as
I
you
hold
have
it.
a bladed weapon available, the blade is
Sure,
considered
sure.
magic. Yeah. It's,
So since Absorb Elements does explicitly say that it gives you resistance instead of having the damage, one way to maybe, if you wanted those to stack, if you wanted it to stack with Spellbreaker Mantle, you could just, instead of saying that you can cast Absorb Elements, just write in the mechanics, but say that it has the damage, instead of saying that it gives you resistance, because then it would stack.
Yeah.
The
Which I don't
issue
know,
is,
but
is
is
whether
that-
Then
or
you're only
not,
taking quarter damage.
yeah, the issue is
Yeah.
whether or not they intended that, and that's kind of
Yeah,
where the
definitely.
wording gets in. Because there are ways you can stack carry weight stuff. So the sixth level Totem Bear ability is it doubles your carry weight, but it doesn't say you are treated as one size larger. So you can have a Goliath Totem Barbarian who his
yeah.
ability says he is treated as one size larger, and then the Bear Totem ability says, and then double your carry weight, which is what
Nice.
treated as what size larger does. That's why they stack, is because if they were both just you were treated as one size larger, they wouldn't stack with each other. But because of one of them explicitly is just the wording of that the ability gives you, and the other one is the ability, they do stack. So if they wanted that, yeah, it's kind of like what you said. They could just change one of them, either they could just change the Mirror Blade to basically just say the words that Absorb Element says, but it doesn't give you resistance, it just receives half damage if they wanted to kind of shirk around that on purpose. But then does that become too powerful?
Yeah.
I don't know. One thing that I do like about this subclass is that everything that I can think of as like, well, if I was going to make a Spellbreaker subclass, what are all the things it would need to be able to do? It does all of them. Like it gives you a bonus to your saving throws. It lets you deal more damage to mages. It makes you take less damage from mages.
Lets you
It
sniff
lets
them
you
out.
identify mages. Like those are kind of all the things that, at least for me, I feel like it needs to do to hit that flavor, which I think is one of the most important things in design,
Yeah.
especially for a class.
That's the, it's the success element of like, whether or not someone likes your thing, it's like you successfully achieved your goals, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this person I think achieved their goal
They
of
made a
making a
Spellbreaker.
Spellbreaker class.
That's
for
good,
sure.
yeah.
For sure.
I do like where this class is going. It is very much Path of the Ancients Paladin, but scrambled. Because Path of the Ancients gives all of these abilities, like we said, like the Arcane Defense is the Paladin auras, but just for yourself. The Spellbreaker Mantle is the ability you get, is the extra aura ability you get as a Path of the Ancients. Is everyone in your aura has resistance to damage from spells. So it's just
Gotcha.
like the reason it works and the reason it feels cool and flavorful is because it's they've used templates from stuff that already existed. Whether or not this can kind of stand on its own is a different issue, and I would honestly love to see an Oath of the Ancients Paladin and a Spellbreaker Ranger just take on a Lich together. That would be that would
Yeah,
make
for
me
sure.
so
That'd be
happy.
cool.
But it is one of those things where like all of these things already existed. And if this is basically an opportunity to be a ranger version of an Oath of the Ancients Paladin, which is never
definitely.
really a bad thing, I think, in a design space. Because if you're like, well, I want to be the Spellbreaker, but I don't want to be a Paladin, then this is going to be
that's
a
fair.
very good option for you.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I really like this for what it is, for the like what their design choices were. For I feel like they succeeded pretty well on their design goals. Now that we've like finished the document, I wonder if, as in our personal opinions, is this where you'd put a Spellbreaker subclass? Because when I read through this, I don't see a ranger in it anywhere. Like in the sense that like I want to pick a ranger, and if I saw this as an option, I'd be like, how is this connected to being a ranger?
Like all of these abilities could have just been given to a fighter.
Been on a fighter. Yeah, if this was a fighter, it would be the
Sure.
same. I mean, the spellcasting, I guess. But if
I
you
think
were
in a way,
a limited spellcasting fighter.
I can't speak for the creator of this, so I have no idea if this is what they were thinking or not.
Sure.
But to me, it is a bit reminiscent of the idea of rangers having a favored enemy. So it's the idea of being a
Okay.
type of fighter that is hyper specialized. Is ranger-esque, but I understand what you're saying though.
I get what you're. Yeah,
But-
no, I
but
get
that
you.
is the way that it
for some
connects for
reason,
me.
for me, somebody who's designed specifically to take on like one kind of foe. Like there is a bit of that with Ranger with their chosen enemy, but I always picture rogues as though single target assassination. Like a rogue could be the person who is specifically kitted out to kill a high priority mage target. And it would make more sense to me to design an anti-magic rogue than an anti-magic ranger. Also because rangers are spellcasters. So then it's a
don't
little
know.
weird.
Well,
Whereas
and
like,
Therein we
Yeah.
get into the inherent sort of design flaw of the Rangers as a class themselves, and where we
Yeah.
can hint at the lost Ranger discussion episode from long ago.
the lost text.
The lost text that we talked about, where it's just like, well, the Rangers trying to be too many things, and I think that's why
Yeah.
they get kind of a lot of flack. Is they're trying to be rogues, but I'm in the wilderness. They're trying to be fighters, but I'm in the wilderness. You know, they're trying to be rogues, fighters, and druids all at once, and so the Wizards obviously gets like kind of hesitant to design them too strong in any one of those areas because they don't want them to outshine the fighter in the fighting, they don't want to outshine the druid in the druid, and they don't want to outshine the rogue in the rogue. And so they kind of get these weird middle of the ground abilities that kind of basically neuter them in each of those categories. So instead of being great at one thing, they're just kind of okay at three things.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think if I were going to do like my own redesign of all the classes, where I could kind of organize
Every
it
class. Okay, buckle in for the next 10 hours.
This is a
boys,
special
'cause-
episode.
I almost think that the intention with rogues and rangers, and maybe I'm mistaken about the intentions, but it reads to me like the intentions with rogues and rangers and then the application sort of got reversed somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a rogue should be a jack of all trades, and the rangers should be these hyper specific, I've been trained to hunt this one kind of thing. But then in practice, the rangers are a little bit of everything, and rogues are like the hyper specific trained
I
assassin.
do one thing.
Yeah.
I deal
Well, and
a
that's-
million sneak
But I
attacks.
kind
that's
of
why
feel like
the-
it should be the other way around.
That's why the best subclasses for the Rangers are the ones that are hyper specialized. Like the Deep Stalker, who gets all these super powerful front loaded abilities. It's one of the better subclasses for the Rangers because it is so specific to like you are the thing that goes bump in the night, and that's why you're good, you know. And all the other
Yeah.
better ones, like the better of the player's handbook ones, the kind of the default ranger is like a hyper specified kind of fightery boy, and so it's very good at its fighting abilities that it gets. Like I don't think any other class gets more attacks before level 7 than like a properly
Rangers.
tuned ranger.
Yeah.
If you're playing it right.
If you're
you-
playing
you
it
can
right,
get
you can
there.
attack like 5 times a turn consistently.
Yeah.
You know.
I guess what it comes back to for me is that like a person who just like has a magic sword and kills wizards, nothing about my personal vision of the ranger fantasy involves any of that.
I think that's funny because I feel like so much of that in any D&D discussion
Yeah.
is going to be extremely dependent on your personal fantasy baggage that you bring
Definitely.
with you from
100%.
what totally, from what fantasy narratives you have consumed previously in your life. Because to me, I feel like it does work, where I think of rangers as like part of this conclave that is trained to go after this one specific type of thing, where it's like you have one kind of prey that you hunt, and and the idea of them being huntsmen in the woods as almost more of a metaphor. So the idea of them being like, I, as a ranger, am trained to hunt mages, like, totally tracks, but I also can absolutely see why if you had a different vision of rangers, that wouldn't track at all. So then the question you ask of then, so what class do you put it in if you weren't going to put it in ranger? I feel like the reason to not have it be just like a cleric or a paladin is if you don't want that kind of like holy religious
the divine baggage, if you will,
and also even with a fighter,
the divine luggage.
The divine luggage, or even a fighter where the image that pops into most people's mind is of someone like heavily armored, whereas I think the idea of this is somebody who can blend in and sneak up on the person, which that's got to be either a rogue or a ranger. So then it's just, which of those two do you want?
I could also see an interesting version of a monk that uses key points to like fight magic, so that it's like in this monk specific school, magic is a perversion of ki, and so then they use their ki as a way to counterspell magic.
You're making me just picture like Aang taking away Ozai's firebending, where it's like you can block the conduit so that they can't cast.
yeah but like that would also make sense for me because monks can also like blend in and be sneaky and jump over the gates to like hunt down the wizard in their camp or whatever. So I would like maybe a rogue or a monk version of
that'd
this.
That'd be cool. I think that'd be.
I think that would be an interesting.
There is sort of already a version of the ranger or of the rogue wizard assassin. It's called the Arcane Trickster. It's
but
called
they
a level.
Do magic.
It's called a level 16 Arcane Trickster because they learn counterspell. They can literally steal wizards' ability to cast spells. But it's a thing. It's like all about the flavor is what we're looking for, and it kind of once again it kind of just boils down to what people think rangers should be, and what rangers are, and what rangers can be. I feel like the barbarians kind of get stuck a lot in this kind of a similar route, is because they're like, well, this is what I think a barbarian is, and then we were literally discussing the other day. It's like, well, a barbarian could be just a samurai. And like in their like original intent, and rage is just a battle focus that they can use, and kind of a thing. And when you look at it, how Wizards of the Coast made samurai is they went and took the fighter and went, what if we just add a little bit of barbarian,
Yeah, definitely.
It's very interesting to me. Early on in the discussion, you were talking about like, well, I feel like this is how people view fighters, and this is how people view rangers. I think a really good way to break it down is, what do you think each character in the Fellowship of the Ring is?
Yeah.
And I feel, and it's one of those things where it's like, ignoring what you feel about them, what do they, and particularly the movies, I think it's a little easier to break it down because they've got their personalities a little more available to us, at least in a visual medium. But and it's one of those things where it's like, Strider, Aragorn is obviously a ranger. He's in tune with nature. He's doing these things. But then you would go, oh wait, but isn't Legolas a ranger? And I would actually argue that Legolas is a dexterity-based fighter, because all of his nature-y stuff just comes from him being an elf. All of his skills in battle are just, I shoot the thing and it stops moving.
Man, now I really want to just get all my D&D friends together, sit down, watch all 3 of those extended editions, and just argue the whole time about who is what.
Like we could have a whole side quest about what are the characters in the Fellowship of the Ring.
Totally.
It sounds absolutely draining.
If you
as
want
an experience.
your party of 9 players to be the Fellowship, what classes and races do you all have to take? What feats?
Or what would a better version of the Fellowship be?
9 wizards.
They'd all just take it 9 levels in wizard. Yeah, that's the obvious. Why didn't Gandalf get other wizards? Duh.
No, they were busy. Maybe.
I know the actual Lord of the Rings lore.
Also, you know what happened the last time we got Radagast involved.
Yeah.
Looks at camera.
Bird poop on the head, Radagast. All right, that's
And on that note.
Let's end the episode there. Thanks so much for bringing that, Mercy. Laser Llama posted on Unearthed Arcana, and as Mercy said, we will be linking below their Patreon and their GM binder. Is that what the other is? GM binder. For you to check out their other work, their other material. If there's something else that they've made that you are interested, send it to us. Let us know about it. We may review that on a future episode and revisit the creator.
And they specifically make all their homebrew available for free. So that's,
Free?
if you really like and use a lot of their stuff, I would definitely encourage you to support them on Patreon if you can.
Yeah. Remember to like the video, subscribe for future Dungeons & Dragons homebrew discussion content. And until next time, keep on adventuring. Bye-bye.
Bye.